Hello, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. Hope this all finds you really well. So here we are, the wheel turns once more, and we are moving into and through what is known as Loaf Feast. And Loaf Feast for um, traditionally would have been a time where, as kin, clan, and community, that we would have gone out into the fields together and we would have brought in the harvest together as kin, clan, and community, and then we would have celebrated that harvest. And such a beautiful, beautiful thing of the community of kin and clan uniting together to go out into the fields, bring that harvest in, and to then celebrate that harvest. So it would have been a time traditionally to do so. It would have been a time of honouring the corn and grain, the goddess and the gods associated to corn and grain and associated to harvest. Hence Loaf Feast. It's really, really kind of a really beautiful thing. And for me, as I begin to take those steps into that journey of opening up community rites and rituals, I was really kind of wanting to really understand the relevance of those ancient rites and how we can bring them and weave them into the here and now in a really kind of physical and tangible way. And when I look at Loaf Feast, I'm really kind of connecting to that idea of, you know, community and coming together, which for me felt very natural to kind of start our earth journeys at Loaf Feast. This whole idea and this thread of going out into the fields together, coming together as kin, clan, and community, and then celebrating. It's a time of celebrating and thanksgiving, a time of honouring oaths, bonds, promises, a time of gift giving. Traditionally the whole community, the clan and kin would unite together, go out into the fields, bring that harvest in, celebrate that harvest with supper, with stories and music, and in amongst that, bonds being met, being honoured, promises being upheld, new bonds and oaths being made, exchange of goods and gifts. It was right in the heart of summer. Just then making preparations because the days begin to slowly just draw back from here on, and the light begins to wane, and we start to move very slowly into the darkness, and we start to move very slowly towards the autumn and into winter. So the coming weeks and months, we'd have made preparations for that, storing away the harvest, preserving and storing all that food that would carry us over for winter. And for us, that's exactly what we do, on a smaller scale. But from our kitchen garden, I think about the garlic harvest that was brought in at midsummer, and all of that then was stored, hung and dried, and then after several weeks of it curing, drying, we would then, and we have, take those bulbs, clean them, separate the cloves, and then they are stored in our homemade apple cider vinegar, and then that gives us a year's worth of garlic. So when I think of these rituals and these rites and these ceremonies, there's a tangible thread from what was done to what is being done, and how we can bridge that wisdom between then and now to make it really kind of tangible into the modern time, into the modern world. And I think, to be honest with you, that these ceremonies and rites are probably required in these times as much as they were behind us. You know, our ancestors most definitely had different challenges, but you know, we are moving into a time of there will be similar challenges. I really feel that in my heart, and I do believe that you know clan and community is key. Um, you know, it's the skills, the sharing, the exchange of knowledge and wisdom. You know, and I'm very blessed to be a part of several communities that overlap. They kind of merge at the edges, and you know, generous people that are very generous with their skills, their knowledge, their wisdom, and even their resources. And that is a gift and a blessing, because you know when I think that how changeable, we're talking about kind of you know farming and growing food and living with the land, and I think how changeable the seasons have become. You know, you take this last year, it has been such a wet spring and a wet summer, that some of what we could have grown, we've not been able to, because we've just not had the light. The light's been there, but it's been shadowed by a lot of murk and grey and huge amount of rain. Um, so you know, you imagine those challenges our ancestors have had. You know, I believe that we are moving into a time where you know things are you know different, but they're challenging. Um, we will experience some of those challenges moving forwards, um, and it's how we, I guess it's how we approach them. You know, the seasons are no longer as predictable as they once were. You know, things are in a state and flux of change. We've only got to look out into the world, and the world is trying to right itself, and the land beneath our feet is absolutely trying to right itself. And I think you know if we can, you know, start to move into a place of, you know, kind of caretaking, and moving from harm to healing, then you know things can be very different. Um, you know, and there's a story, you know, that really brings all this together. So if we think about the core kind of principles, the core message of Loaf Feast, it is one of coming together. It's one of going out into the fields together, bringing in the harvest and celebrating that harvest, honouring bonds, oaths, promises, making new oaths, bonds, promises, upholding them, exchange of goods, and gift giving. Now, a story that I share kind of really weaves that together. So it's a few years back now, and it was a day's event, and it was kind of talking about the changing world, and talking about climate, talking about food production, and it was an incredible experience. And there I was standing in the middle of a road that had actually been blocked off, part of this event and event, and there was like workshops and talks and seminars, so much knowledge and wisdom being shared. And there I was standing in the middle of this road that had been kind of closed, and there was hay bales for seats. And I looked over, and this lady was sitting there, and she gestured to me to come and sit next to her. So I walked over, and she was one of those people that, you know, when she smiled, her smile carried, and it almost like kind of enveloped me in a huge amount of warmth. And remember, you know, this was a stranger, I hadn't met her, but yet when she looked over and she smiled, this smile carried and kind of enveloped me, wrapped itself around me, and I sat next to her on this hay bale, and there she was, just very simply sitting, peeling an orange. And she peeled this orange and she put the peel to one side. She broke the orange in half and she just, without a word, just handed me half this orange, looked right into me and just smiled. And I felt hugely touched, like emotionally felt really moved by this experience. And I thought to myself, this is it, this is what community can be. And I knew, and felt the importance of that. And felt I was just gifted the most incredible gift, beyond the orange. I was gifted the most incredible gift, the kindness of strangers, this ability to share, knowledge, wisdom, resources, to share what is ours. And we just both sat there in just complete ease in each other's presence. And what was incredible, the timing was talking about climate change, how the seasons will change, and how as we move forward, the food integrity is going to be really important. And we might see that in the mainstream system, i.e. the big major supermarkets, we may see food shortages to come, but it's not like there isn't enough food. It's just the way we source it will have to change, i.e. it might be that we grow a little bit more. It may be that we source our food at a more local level. It might be that there's community kitchen gardens. There's the return of the greengrocer at a more local level, and that food is grown more locally, and then it's distributed at a local level. And it was the most incredible talk, because right in that moment of her handing that orange to me, we're talking about the the food integrity and the potential at mainstream level of potential shortages going forwards. And I just thought, it was so profound. And I really wanted to share that with you and share kind of the ideas around Loaf Feast. I mean, that experience there, me sitting on that hay bale, is not one that I will forget, and it isn't one that I will forget for so many reasons. And it carries so much weight for me at this time, and I do believe it was around about this time, many years back, when I had that experience at that event of all those speakers and all those people sharing their knowledge and wisdom, and how we can navigate the world moving forwards. And so much of what they said a few years back we are now living. But yeah, it was such a beautiful thing. It was so simple. That was the other thing. It was so simple, but there was so much integrity and unsaid exchange within that experience. It's the beautiful side of humanity, and together we can achieve great things. And I think the other thing I want to share before I say goodbye is that these rites and rituals and ceremonies, again, they could be brought back together at a local level. There was a time where we would travel huge distance to go to a rite or ritual or ceremony. How about we weave them back together at a local level, and maybe it's starting with just a few friends, and just kind of making it relevant to you, your community, your locality. Is there sacred spaces everywhere, but we can also kind of bring back to life the old sacred spaces that were within our locality. We just need to scratch under the surface and just bring them up to be remembered, retold and reborn. That we can do that at a local level, and that's how it would have been. So the field that we are going to hold our rite and ritual at one time would have sat between two ancient hedgerows. It does still sit between an ancient hedgerow, and it was the old county border. It's about just kind of, moving into your locality and feeling where you're being called to go. And like I say, maybe it's one or two friends, and then maybe it just gently grows from there. But there's a few thoughts for Loaf Feast, and as always, a heartfelt pleasure, and keep shining.